Watch this week's episode of Hashknife Hangouts to see how the cattle market fared compared to last year. Also, we will share the events surrounding shipping and selling this year's calves. Welcome to Hashknife Hangouts. I'm Calen. The grizzled fatherly figure on the left of your screen is, in fact, my dad and co-host, Brandon. If this is your first time seeing us, like, comment, and subscribe. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the handles below. You won't find Dad on Twitter, but you will find me. Now, today's Today's topic is more focused on current events at the ranch, which is shipping calves and fall sales. So this is traditionally a big part of the year for many ranches. When we have branding, this is the back end of that. This is the big and the small stuff. These are one of those big ones. We represent one family, but try our best to share the insights, thoughts, and some of the feelings that others might be experiencing as well. Braden, my younger brother, came home for a longer weekend after fighting wildfires for a couple of weeks to assist mom and dad with the process. Thankfully, he was there because he rode the horse while dad rode the side-by-side to draw the herd to the corrals for sorting. Apparently, there are a few hitches here and there. I heard mom had a tumble with a larger calf, but she won. The running joke now is that we are missing good filming opportunities with dad going off the horse, mom getting or in a wrestling match with the calf. It is what it is. So what happened? Well, herds were gathered, calves separated, calves then trailered to town and dropped off at the auction yard. And that was all Thursday on October 7th. That was about a week ago. And then the calves were sold the next day through the ring on Friday, October 8th. What we'll go over today are what were the prices, what was the outcome, what does this mean, and then we'll go on from there. But first, though, what are some of the emotions going through everyone's head on the day of gathering? And I'll pass that off to Dad.
Well, you forgot calving. Calving is the big three.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all connected. It's just different timelines for the same basic thing of having calves, growing calves, selling calves. So, I mean, it was kind of typical, really. I mean, there wasn't anything really super extraordinarily different other than I wasn't horseback for the first time in
a while.
I don't even know how long. Yeah. And you're right. Your brother has been, he's been fighting fire since May. And this one just happened to be a solid 2-week, I think it was actually 16 days. And he got home the night before we were going to go down and gather. I had his horse up for him, so that was big of me.
That makes sense as to I'll link the video above, but that makes sense as to why he was so grumbly that morning now, because you guys were up at 4:00 ready to go.
Yeah, well, and he's tired. He's been working every day nonstop for 16 hours, something like that a day, and he gets a little growly, and I don't blame him. I mean, that's hard work and not easy work, and no breaks. So and not that great of money. I mean, they can make some money at times, but it's not that super great. I mean, they're not getting wealthy at it. So yeah, he came home the night before, reeked of smoke, of course, brought clothes so that he really didn't have that much to do, because he was here the weekend before he left, or a few days before he left, was gone the entire time. And they don't go through many clothes. I think they go through socks, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Brought that stuff home to do a load of laundry, is basically what it was, and help us out, and then on his way. But it was really good to have his help. We could have done it probably with difficulty, but him being horseback really made all the difference. And I knew that was going to happen kind of like that a little bit. So I kind of cheated a little. I would about 3-4 days before we were to gather, I went out and I shook some cake, and I caked those cows, and had most of them coming in, and I caked them right there in the corral, brought them in, caked them so that they would just come right on in, them and the calves, and just kind of saned them a little bit. Got a little behavior modification on cow talk here. And so it worked. And then that morning did the same thing. We put the cake in there first, closed the gate so nobody could get in. And then as he got closer with the cows, I went and zipped around another big area of the pasture, and I had nothing there. I think they were all down where he was at. And he pushed them in and opened the gate, and they just peeled real nice right in there. And then a couple of stragglers kind of getting out on the side. He brought them around. They ran in there, closed the gate, and that was it. It was nice. It was pretty fast.
Uneventful. That's always good.
Oh yeah, it was uneventful, super uneventful. And then the sorting started, and I had him sorting on horseback. It's always easier to do that. It really is. Unless we get to where, I guess, we brought everybody to the main place from out there in that lease pasture. Those corrals they are just hung together. I think you've helped, put up some wire and a few posts and stuff. I mean, it's a lease property, which we're lucky to have. Hope, it just continues to work out. But we've just kind of put that up as a afterthought, just to make it work. And it's working. Of course, our cows aren't real wild, so that also helps. We've talked about that a little bit too. But so we just separate everybody, sort them out, put them all in the trailer, and I think we made like three loads of, I think we had less than 50 pairs in there. So whatever that worked out to be, 3-4 trailer loads, light trailer loads over, and dumped them in the big corral. And then from there, that's when we did the final sort of sexing them, and then whose brand was whose on what. And then, when you got them tight in an alley like that, a bunch of little bumblebees like that, then it's easier to get on foot and sort. But that sorting cows from calves is always easier on horseback. And he did a good job, did a really good job. So it was nice and quiet, nice and patient, working his horse, working in circles. I mean, couldn't ask him to do any better. So that was nice. But yeah, we're loading calves up, going down the chute, sort of. And I look up and I see your mother on the ground. I'm thinking, oh my God. Well, apparently a calf had backed up a little faster than she could get out of the way. And, she's not that big. And she bounced right back up. I think she might have said a bad word, but I was worried, like, oh my God, what, because that can be
I broke the
serious.
wife.
Yeah, exactly. Again. And so she gets her up, and she's tougher than I am. She wasn't even sore the next day. I'm still hobbling around a little bit. I can't raise my left knee up too high, but it'll get better. Anyway, yeah, so we got that done, and then separated everybody out. Then and I promised Braden, I said, if you can do this and we can get them separated, and you can take one load to town with us with the horse trailer, and we'll take the stock trailer in your pickup. If you can do one load for us, then you can go home, do whatever, and then we'll finish the rest of the load. Going back up for another load. And he was like, yeah, that'll work. And I know he came home and napped, and I would have too, So him and his dog needed some time with him. She was getting a little bit unruly.
So that's the process of gathering day. And then all you did was you went in and you watched them get sold and you filmed it, and that's all you really do. Yeah. I guess the question, the first one I started with, and I'll say it again, and then I'll kind of explain where I'm coming with it. What are some of the emotions going through everyone's head the day of gathering? So thinking of, last year, understanding, the cattle prices aren't great this year. The monopolization of the 4 main meat packers has come to light in at least Congress. Everybody knew about it, but Congress was finally made aware of it, and they're supposedly doing some things and introducing legislation. But understanding that background and understanding like this is not this has potential for other things to occur. What are some of the thoughts and the emotions that we're going through Braden? I don't know what really his thought process is, but at least coming from you and Mom, the real ranch boss, what were some of the things that you guys were thinking of and kind of feeling on that day? Because I think that's something that viewers that haven't really watched us or don't know anything about agriculture, that's something that maybe they should know that they don't necessarily.
Well, I mean, it's not just that day. I mean, you stress about this months in advance. Yeah. When you see things like, okay, we're not getting any rain like we should be getting, the grass is short, and you're like, okay, well, I mean, we've had short years before, but then it continues on and continues on, and then it gets hot, and you're like, oh man, I'm hoping these cows are going to breed up. I'm hoping these bulls are working because of the heat. They'll tend not to sometimes. And that's part of the reason why we saturate, with a low ratio of bulls to cows. So we've got, plenty of ability for these bulls to cover these cows. But, you get things like this with the heat that can definitely make an impact on that. Then you get, not as much grass. Then you get the grasshoppers that come in. And every time this stuff all just stacks up, and it makes you worry and anxious more and more all the time. Market prices, I mean, that's always something that's you're constantly watching, even when your calves are, just during calving season, because a lot of people are contracting their calves in. And we had a deal going. We talked about that last year, where I said, I'm going to see if I can contract these calves, and was talking with someone, and she was like, yeah, we're working on this. And it was, getting some headway. And then all of a sudden, with, a couple weeks of having some serious grasshopper issues on our place, particularly the winter pasture, it's like you can see what's going to happen, and the price of hay is, astronomical. So all of those things, the whole thing is something that's not just one piece, but a whole series of pieces that fit together. And I'm, worried about it the whole time. Your mom's worried about it. We talk about it a lot. Maybe that's not the best thing, because, you keep it in the forefront of your mind and you verbalize the stuff, and then you just get, worried more and more. But, I had to take 16 pairs to town. Took some of the older cows and their calves. Well, now I'm not even close to making a load for this broker. And, I had to call her and tell her, I said, hey, she hadn't really settled on anything yet, and was trying to get us some outlets for our cattle, and said, I'm sorry, I just had to take 16 pairs because we're not going to have the grass. We're not going to have the hay to support them. And she's like, oh God, but we're not the only ones. There's a lot of other people are doing exactly the same thing. It's tough. It's not fun. It's not an exercise by any means of, hey, maybe we should do this on a whim. This is something that's a response that's necessary. So here we are, right back to going through the stockyards again with the remaining cattle. But one of the things that we are also, like we said, as a gamble, is we did keep some heifers back. When you're not getting paid for them, you might as well keep some, and hopefully, we've got enough hay to cover them. I've made sure of that, so we can be poised later on, making this big gamble that, we're going to come out a little bit more ahead if the weather turns and markets, improve some. Then we're not trying to rebuild a herd. We're just kind of maintaining a herd. We're not replacing what we sold by any means. I mean, you go to town with 16 and then you keep 8 or 10. That's not that's not a replacement. It's a help. So with that, that's kind of where the reality of it is. You can keep heifers. There was a 2014. We'd had astronomical prices. I would never seen prices like that. And we went, you know what? This is an opportunity, since we're now getting paid well for these heifers as well as the steers. Now's an opportunity to save a bunch of heifers, because the ones that went down the road paid for these. So that's just kind of managing your money and your herd, and affording you the opportunity. And like your mom said on this, she goes, well, at least we can feel better about keeping these heifers, because if we sold them, we're not getting that much for them anyway.
Right.
So you might as well keep the best ones, and we did, and make that work, that we're going to produce some of these cattle later on. Then the other thing we did is, for the first time, besides our own use, of course, we haven't butchered our own beef. We were going to last year, and we ended up selling that steer. We never butchered, so we haven't had a butchered beef in, oh my gosh, 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, at least 10. I think the last year was like 2013. So it's been 8 years. Everything's gone to market. So we don't even pay ourselves in beef. It's when you look at it, you think, oh, you should be swimming in beef. Yeah, well, they're swimming all right, but they're swimming down the stream away from us. So we're able to, we saved a small bunch of steers, some of our lighter steers that are later in the year, and we're going to go ahead and just gently see what we can do with these guys next year for this time of year, having butcher beef for sale for people as a custom fed. And we're only doing a few, going to be very, very selective, and watch what we're doing. We did keep one last year. I should back up and say that we kept one along with a friend of ours who wanted one, and they were going to put it in a section size pasture with a couple of horses. And I said, if you do that, unless you have another one with it, they're not going to do real well. That steer is going to be gone through fences, gone trying to find somebody to live with. I said, so that's why I said, you know what, we'll put one with it and we'll go ahead and butcher. So we've got one we're starting to feed out right now, doing a grain finish on it. It's grass fat with a grain finish, and working towards that. So in about a month, less than a month, it'll right at a month, I guess, it's gonna be going to slaughter. And then we're gonna look at that, see what we've done, and then make any adjustments on that for next year. And I've been doing a lot of research, done a lot of reading, doing our own experience, thinking, how can you make it better? You're always trying to improve your situation, right? If you're not, you're a fool, unless you've got it so dialed in that you can do nothing but slide back down the hill. And there's some guys that are like that. There's some guys that are really, really good at finishing out some cattle, and definitely won't share their recipe. So
Oh yeah.
I don't blame them. I get it. We don't share some of the horse training techniques that we do too. So that's how it goes.
So that was kind of what's going through your head on gathering day. Some of the other things that the beef slaughter, which we've talked about in a couple of other forums on our channel. But then on sale day, kind of the same question in terms of understanding, okay, last year's prices, the situation this past year. On top of that, not only are we fighting hoppers now, but now we're fighting a drought, and it's very difficult understanding. Last year calves were lighter, and you're predicting that they'll be even lighter this year. Kind of going down that line on sale day specifically. You're about to sit down in that seat and watch calves go through and get sold in front of you. What are some of the emotions on that day?
Well, it's gut wrenching, really. You're hopeful. You're watching other people's cattle go through, and some of them are doing okay, and others aren't. And it's just it just depends on who wants what, and what they're willing to pay. And some did very well. There were a couple of small herds that went through there that were doing really, really well. I thought really well. I'd have been happy with that, and did a little bit better than our steers. Heifers were holding their own. They were down a little bit, but that's normal. Heifers don't bring what the steers do. So it was interesting to watch. Like always, I mean, it's always the same thing. You're just watching and you're going, oh God, I hope our cattle look as good as this, because you're sitting up away from them and you're looking and going, oh, those are some pretty good looking cattle. And it shows the size of them, or the weights and the weight per head, and the average. I'm like, oh God, do ours look like that? Do they look as good? I mean, maybe ours are better. Maybe they're, I mean, and you can't tell because it's just so far away. Unless you're right down there on the ground. I'm looking at the guys that are working in the ring, how tall they are, and comparing the tops of these backs of these hips and stuff of these calves that are moving away from them. And so you're just constantly, looking and evaluating, is this going to work? And I hope it does. Then yours come through, and then it's like, okay, bid, and you hope they spend a little time pushing your cattle, the auctioneer himself, and hopefully they'll, you have somebody who wants this particular color or this particular weight. And I was surprised I had guessed the steers to be 560. average, and they were 553. So I missed it by a little bit. But I knew they'd be lighter, and that was partly because of the environmental factors we talked about, but also we went 2 weeks earlier than we did last year, because you worry about this, and this is part of all of that whole pre-planning is, when are we going to take these to town?
Right.
What's the market going to do? Is the market going to all of a sudden just fall off? So we took again, you're going to lose some on weights. Weights are light anyway. They'd have been right in there at the 575, I think, 570 point when if we'd have given 2 more weeks. But I'm looking at the cows. I'm looking, you know what? These cows need a break from these calves. We want to take care of those cows. The market it's holding its own. It hasn't crashed. Let's just go with them and hope that we can do well enough that we're okay without, hitting a market crash and, just taking our lumps with lighter weights.
Well,
pounds matter.
and another thing too, to consider that people might not think about is you guys just got snow today for the first time. And normally when you get snow, you have to start feeding hay. And there's that potential also that winter comes a little early and suddenly you're feeding twice the amount of mouths that you're planning on originally doing. So you're holding on to extra feed for 2 weeks and dishing it out before you can get to the sale and sell them too. So that's just another thing.
It is. That's right. You're right. And we actually, just because you're down in Kentucky and it's warm and balmy there, we actually got snow. What the heck was it? I guess it was Monday. Yesterday we got snow as well. For little squalls come through, and it was muddy and nasty. But yeah, it's winter is here, but we're going to have a little bit of cold weather like this. It'll warm up. I think by Thursday, day after tomorrow, Friday, it'll probably be upper 40s, low 50s, and I can finish getting some other things done that I need to button up. And then I fed today, fed these heifers for the first time. I got the small ones that are weaned. They're in a corral eating, full feed, whatever they want, and water. And I'm just kind of watching them with those steers. We're just keeping them all together right now. And then put a bale out for the replacement heifers and the heifers that are going to be first-time calvers in the spring. So just keeping them happy. But once you start feeding, you got to keep feeding. And I knew we were going to do that. Even if we didn't have snow, I was going to start feeding this week because of that, because we just don't have the grass on that pasture, because they're the ones, they couldn't go over the other lease. We're limited on the numbers that we can have on that lease. So, we got bulls scattered with different cows and the cows scattered in different places. And I've already got those heifers on our winter pasture. That's where they have to go. And then when the cows will join them here on the 31st of October, then we'll bring those cows home, and then we'll be feeding even a little more. But we knew we were going to do that because no grass or snow has got to force us to feed. And now we got no grass and snow. So it's the same thing, But I accounted for that, and that's part of the gamble. We spent a lot more on hay, and for basically a little bit more than we normally get, but we got less animals because of the extra number of days we're gonna have to feed.
Now I'm gonna talk about the prices, and I have the numbers up I got on my Twitter feed because I shared it. The steers were average 553 pounds, and they sold for $1.69 per pound, and then the heifers were 494 pounds, and they sold for $1.47. Those were our prices that we received. And I just wanted you to kind of explain, for anybody that's not understanding, like, well, what do you mean per pound and so on, or center weight, stuff like that. Can you explain how the price works with cattle, and then how these prices fared to last year, and kind of where that's going to lead towards decision making?
First of all, the prices are a little confusing. So, let's take the steers. We were at $1.69 a pound, or if you'll also see it $169 CT, or C is a C note, 100 pound weight, CWT, 100 weight. So it's either per pound 1 point something or 100 and like this, in this case, $69 per hundredweight CWT. So you'll see both of those interchanged, and you just have to just move the decimal point in your head and know what it is. So in our case, it was 553 for per pound or 5.53 per hundredweight. You got 500 weights plus almost a half or a little over a half a hundredweight. So anyway, that's just kind of a little something goofy that I've always never understood, but that's just the way it is, just the way it's reported, you know. So when you sell your cattle, steers are worth more than heifers for slaughter cattle, and the reason is they can put on more muscle a little faster.
Well,
So they're worth a little bit
it's
more.
it's biology.
Yeah, I mean it's just the different muscle makeup. So they just can't, even if they've been banded or castrated or cut, they can still pack on more weight on muscle weight. Therefore, they tend to be worth a little bit more because they can finish them out faster, they can gain faster, that kind of stuff. Typically, when you're looking at a contract where you're thinking about, okay, I want this so much for my steers, and they'll say, well, we'll do 8 cents back or 10 cents back. What that means is if you got $1.69 for your steers and you do 10 cents back, your heifers would be worth $1.59. So that's all that is, because heifers are not usually worth as much, or they're not as worth as much based on what we just talked about. One of the issues I had on this deal was our heifers were 22 cents a pound less than the steers. Like, what the
Yeah,
hell?
that's pretty significant, especially when you're going per pound. 22
Right.
cents per pound. That's a
Right.
lot of meat that's just getting not paid for.
Yeah, so somebody's going to make out well on these heifers. You know, whoever's buying them for, you know, the either backgrounding or the stalker cattle, you know, to put them on grass, because I don't think these guys are probably going to go as a you know, right to a feedlot and they'll feed them up then. They're gonna put some weight on them. I mean, most of the time that's what happens. Not that they can't feed them out, because they can, but probably not. So that was a big hit. And I was like, oh, for crap sakes. Because I think last year on the heifers, we were at $1.38.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was like 137, 138, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Heifer, they were a little bit more money, or they were heavier last year too, but which doesn't make sense, because let's say you have a set of steers that weigh 550 pounds, close to what we got right now, and you're getting $1.69 for those. If you have another set of steers that come in and they're right at 600 pounds, $50 50 pounds more, they're usually going to bring a little bit less, because you have larger cattle, larger steers. They're going to be a little bit less money. You know, even a nickel or something. Say they could have went for $1, you know, 65, 66, whatever that they could have taken. But the heifers, being lighter, should have brought more money than what was, you know, what had been going on. And I'm like totally blown away by that. The only thing that I can think of, and I don't know, because these guys they're just filling trucks, right? They're filling these pots to go to people that they've got contracts with. You didn't see it in the video that I took, but because it got cut off because I bumped it, because I started waving my arms a little bit. He started just calling for bids on our heifers. And I put the heifers in first instead of after the steers, which is unusual too. Normally the steers go first and then the heifers will go in. And they brought those heifers in. And I thought, well, okay, that's kind of weird. It must be just pen number or something wherever they had them. And then he started bidding or calling for bids right away, and started talking about these red heifers here, and then started doing the call. And I'm like, whoa. Hey, this is an enhanced health sale. Not every cow or steer heifer was coming through there did have their worming regime. They didn't have you know, their preconditioning. They did not have mineral subscribed to throughout the year and all of the care that had gone through them. That's what this sale was about. That if you had done that and consigned them early, that they would have buyers there that would do that and they don't have to do anything with them. Well, we know that that isn't always the case either, that they will vaccinate them anyway. So they're like, nah, I'm not doing that unless it's like a full truckload or 2 truckloads and they know they've got them, then they'll just put them in a pen. So he started talking about or calling the bids, and I stopped and went, whoa. These cattle have been preconditioned. They are ready to go. And every time else that they had a issue or wondered whose cattle were, they waited to start the bidding until they talked about whose they were. They found the actual paperwork there and read off what was disclosed on the cattle. They didn't do that with this one. And then I did it, and then they, oh yeah, we'll get to that. We'll find that. They found it, started talking about them, and then started the bidding again. And the bidding was a little bit lower. And I probably just pissed them off because, I just stopped everything. Time is money on those guys. They'd been the day before they had a cattle sale at the other stockyards that they also own. And they started at 9 a.m. and they never finished till 9:30 that night. So they know it's going to be a long day. And when you do that just, and I think that may have just been the thing that pissed them off. That's the only thing I can think of. So because they were for those size of cattle and the way they looked, that was pretty low.
Now we're talking the difference in prices between the two sexes and why it's that way, how the prices work with cattle, but also you said earlier you were comparing what we have compared to others and kind of figuring where we might land before the bid actually started. We've talked before about black versus red being a big deal. The Black Angus has figured out a way to really market to the American public and get them to really buy into, this is the brand. This is what you want on your plate. We come from primarily black cattle country. We're some of the few people that have reds. How did our reds fare in comparison to the blacks? Understanding we are still minority, but price wise and in appearance and whatnot.
I think in appearance they look good. I mean, they still we've got some nice blocky cattle. They were, you see some others that come through that are a little thin on the hip and the hind end. Ours looked good. They're healthy. They're fleshy. Even though they were smaller than I like, they still were healthy. And I think they were probably, in the upper 2/3. I would guess where the steers brought compared to other blacks. I mean, there were some blacks that were really good looking cattle, really nice, filled out, fleshy. They were up there around that 620, 625, and they did well. Didn't quite bring what ours brought, but they got the pounds that make the difference up there. You're gonna make more on how much they weigh, even if they bring less per pound. And that was the case on some of those that were really good looking cattle. And I think that's also the difference between probably a February calving and a mid-March calving. You get that extra weight in there too. If you've got a good open winter like we had last winter, we had a pretty good open winter. I was like, we could have calved these calves early and done it a little bit, got a little bit more on the front end instead of the tail end. But that's the risk you take too, because you can't predict the weather. So they did okay that way. The steers did. I was not unhappy with that. You always want more. You're always hoping that you can get a top dollar, but I think it was as good as we're going to get. I think they averaged like $933 a piece, something like that.
So $933 roughly per
head. Yeah. The heifers was a big disappointment. They were down there towards the bottom, definitely towards the bottom for what they were getting, what they looked like. I mean, they were, you can see in the picture they're good looking cattle. They're healthy, fleshy. Just need a little bit more pounds on them, really. But they should have brought much more than they did because of the little weights they were. So we took a beating on that. I think they were about $832, $835, something like that a piece. There's $100 difference between the steers and the heifers, and there should not have been that much difference. You should have been somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 difference.
Yeah. The last question I have really is understanding those prices. about how much per head it was. So you're saying 933 and then about 834 for steers, then heifers.
Yeah.
What's kind of the outcome now with all of that? What does that mean for the ranch? What looking forward, because now we're talking, everything's a cycle, it's a continuous process, and
Yeah.
this is a point in the year. So you got breeding and the cattle sale that kind of go hand in hand to an extent, where that's prepping you for the next year. So what does that look like going forward? What are the decisions that you have to make, or change or alter or morph a little bit, or hybridize? Like, what do you have to do
Well,
going forward, understanding that you got calves coming in 8 months and you got to be ready for it?
well, actually, we got calves coming, in about 6 months. Yeah.
6 months.
So, I mean, it's a continuation of the next step is bring these cows home, and then 2 days later we'll preg test. And those that have not got a calf in them, they're going to town. I'm not going to feed them. We can't. We can't afford to keep them, and if they're not producing. One of the things we've also done on some of these, because we didn't have the separate pastures to go to, is I've kept these bulls on these cows, and they're not breeding. I think they're bred up, but some of these might be later also, and so we're going to use for the first time. And I don't like doing this because it's not something we've traditionally done. I like to manage these bulls a little bit more, put them in and then take them out. But when we preg test, they do it through ultrasound, and so they can age these calves. So I can figure back what's the latest calving date I want, and if it is say May 15th, just as picking a date, I'll take a little bit later, but if it's May 15th until now, say November 2nd, I guess is when we're gonna preg test. So you look at the difference. What is that? 85 days or so. So anything that's 85 days or less in age, then we can sell that cow as if she was dry. But what we can also do is verify she's pregnant, and then I can sell her as a bred cow to somebody who it doesn't mind having a later calf to kind of get started in, because there are some people that are trying to pick up some cheaper cattle because it's such a glut on the market, and they've got some grass, and they're thinking, yeah, maybe we should get some cows again. So there is that. So there is a market there for them. Maybe not a good market, but probably better by maybe a couple $100 than if the cow was dry. Because
Right.
nobody wants a dry cow. Because if they do that, then they'll go up through what's called weigh ups, where they just go as a sale item for a single cow, and they'll weigh her and say she weighs 1,400 pounds. And they'll go, somebody will bid on her, and she'll come out to be 65 cents a pound. She's going to slaughter. That's what a weigh up is. And sometimes
she
you're older
becomes
cow.
burger because
Yeah.
there's not going to be any good steak off of an older cow.
Not
like
really.
that.
No, it's going to be burger. But that's one avenue. What's one thing that we will do? I'm hoping that they're all bred up and we don't have any late calves, but that's unrealistic. That's a pipe dream. So we may have a few, because we usually have good luck on having our cows and heifers bred up because we saturate with the bulls. But that doesn't mean that the bulls worked for the reasons we stated earlier. But we do have some of those heifers and the steers that we've still got. If things go really south, we can dump some of them if we have to. I don't want to, but we could do that. Money that I've accumulated, or we have, it's a group effort. It's not just me doing it, but clinics, horse sales. Just sold a couple of horses last week, or one for us, but that's 2 miles that we don't have to feed. One for my mother, and then the sale price of that horse now goes into the hay purchase bucket. So it's all about gathering all of the different things that we've done throughout the year, plus dipping into, like we said before, our personal savings to make this work for this year. And you're taking a gamble that it's going to happen. So there's still a lot more to it. It's not over with just because we sold those calves. We've still got some other options there that we have to either keep these calves or keep the cows if they're all calvy, and we can feed them. I've got the hay to do it. We've spent more than we need to or want to or should have, but that's the gamble you take. And in this business, you're a gambler anyway.
Yeah. The this particular episode though is actually shorter right now because we're at 40 minutes and I got no questions. So the really, I guess this would be the last question, and you can go as long as you want, for as long as it's not more than 20 minutes. What are some things that you think of when it comes to like this time of year, going into fall, understanding gathering the calves, sending them to the market, trying to get the best price? You're kind of swimming upstream every single year. This year's a little less upstream than it was last year. uh the outcomes that you have to make, the decisions for now moving forward with the prices you got. So now this is the income that you've gotten for the past year. All these things put together. What's stuff that you think of that, man, I wish people understood that aren't in the cattle business or aren't in agriculture, because harvest is this time of year too. There's people
Right.
all around the nation cutting
Trying
corn,
to.
trying to, yes, corn, wheat, barley, oats, all sorts of things. We're just talking cattle, but there's plants out there too right now. What are things that you think you as a cattle producer or even them as a grain grower might want to share with somebody who doesn't understand that lifestyle, in the sense that it is like a one-time income dump for the year, and just
Yeah.
that whole process and all the stuff that comes with it, the struggles, the frustrations, the downfalls, all the things.
Well, I mean, you're summing it up right there. Most people have a job that they work from 8 to 5, or you know, something like that, a 8 or 9 hour schedule, 5 days a week, and then they get 2 days off to go and play. They get their evenings are off. We don't do that. Yeah, we do get some evenings off, but if there's something going on, we need to keep working, or you need to go back out and check. Calving time is a huge time commitment, and you're not just out there, from 8 to 5. You're out there as soon as your feet hit the floor. You better be out there, making a pot of coffee, and then heading out the door to see what's going on, and come back and get something to drink, something warm in your belly, and maybe get something to eat if there's been no issues, no problems. If you got a cow that's in trouble with a calf, that's priority. It doesn't matter whether you've eaten or not. It's irrelevant. You gotta fix a problem right now, or do the best you can with it. Same way at night. There's things going on. Like, how many times have you known me to come in well after dark?
Yeah.
In the summertime.
Yeah.
Not just in the wintertime when the sun sets low. Everybody's like that. It's not just me. I'm not complaining or whining. I mean, that's just the nature of it. That's just what it is, that I don't think a lot of people understand. I think there's probably a picture in most people's minds who don't know what farming and ranching is, and they think of a hayseed, wearing bib overalls, drinking out of a stone crock of some shine that they've made, and they lay around all day. Yeah, I mean, that is not at all what it's about. I mean, that's what's been popularized in cartoons, and the old Lil Abner comic strip was like that, and there wasn't a lot of working going on in those depictions. So the other thing is like you said, that about once a year you're budgeting, and you're trying to make everything work for a one-time market sale. And how long did it take for those cattle to go through that ring, both steers and heifers? The whole thing was a couple minutes, 2 minutes.
I was gonna say
less than 2 minutes.
I'll probably have the clip in here somewhere. Either I played it when you were talking about looking at the calves and how quick it goes by, or put it up above. But yeah, I mean, it's like 90 seconds per group, and put 90 seconds together.
Yeah.
It's only 3 minutes total. And I guarantee it wasn't a total of 3 minutes. I think it was less than that. But
Yeah, I don't know either. But the point is, a couple minutes worth of work, or a year's worth of work that you're seeing leaving, and you're trying to get at least a profit or a break even in 90 seconds or a minute per head or per group. You never quit worrying about it. You never quit thinking about how can I make things better? How can we do this? How can we tighten things up? And it's very easy to start skimping on things like the amount of hay you give each one. You can start skimping on buying really cheap mineral. You can start skimping on, well, this wormer is really cheap. And there's a big disparity in the type of wormer and a wormer application for parasites that you can give on any given day. You know, if you spend the cheap stuff, you're buying 2.5 gallons for $40. Or you can buy the decent stuff, the good stuff, for about $350. Same size container. But it's like, what are you trying to do? How are you trying to help your animals? What are you trying to do for them? Keep them healthy and parasite free.
Well, I think that's probably, it's a quick rabbit hole, is that's something that's important for us because we've always talked about quality, making sure we provide, not only take care of the animals, but then a quality product, because they will eventually become a steak or burger or something like that. And the vet every year, when he or she comes and visits, always says these cows look good. And why is that? It's because they've got the right medicine and preventive care, and then of course on top of that, feed throughout the tough parts of the year where others might be skimping, and that's probably why they're losing weight more, or they just can't sustain themselves quite like they used to. And I mean, it goes also, I argue, people can probably disagree with it in the agriculture educational section, where they got theories and ideas, and where they pay attention to stats more. The extra year we have for heifers, I think that also leads to a lot of that as well. So I think these little pieces that it costs us in the upfront, I think also helps later on down the road.
Yeah.
Is it doing it well right now? No, but
no. Well, and there that brings up another issue. What we could do is we could go ahead and breed these larger heifers, yearling heifers, and have them calve it too. You're taking a chance on losing some calves or a heifer. Well, you could do that. And I think, it's what a lot of people used to do is what we're doing. And we've pushed them. And, you're calving closer to January, February, so that calf is a little bit bigger. By the time you turn bulls into them, they're, 14 months old, 15 months old, instead of 18 months, or in our case, you'd be looking at about 12, 15, 12, 13 months old. And that's a little bit, to me, it's a little bit young. But we're calving later, so we don't have the size on these animals or the maturity by a couple of months, which makes a big difference when you're going from an adolescent into adulthood. Bone structure is larger, denser. But I agree. I think we're ahead that way, and we've been really, really diligent about picking our best stock. I mean, you can always pick better. There's nothing perfect, I mean, you can always do better, but trying to improve all the time. Now, we could go down that road. I mean, there's one more thing that we could get some efficiency out of by not having an idle heifer for a year where she's not producing. That's a waste. We believe we're gaining that on the backside, and lack or less loss for heifers or calves when we're calving, not having to pull them, that kind of stuff. The other thing we can do, and don't think I haven't considered it and thinking about it, and I'm still considering it, is that when I tried to broker these calves, they're very desirable because the way we handle them, what we do with them, no hormones, no antibiotics. They're pasture raised. They got spring fed water, for God's sakes. I mean, I'll stick my face down in that water and drink it right out of the ground. They're cared for well. We do what we need to do for them, and there's a lot of people do the same thing. But because they're the color they are, they're not as desirable. So there's something in the future that we may have to consider, and that is starting to turn this herd black. I don't want to, because I love these reds. I love the disposition. We've worked hard to get them there. But you know what? The Black Angus Association, or Black Angus people, have done a brilliant job. And I think those are the words I've used before, is brilliant job of marketing. Now, when you look on a menu somewhere and it says certified Angus. Does it say certified black Angus?
Nope. But you think black Angus.
You think black Angus because that's what they've got a silhouette of an animal up there that could be Charolais, could be white. But the silhouette always, and they're talking about black Angus, and the black Angus have been the ones who have pushed that, and good for them. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job. But what is the number one thing when they're grading or looking at carcass is they're looking at, the first thing is the hide, and it has to be predominantly or more than 51% black. Well, that tells you there that could be 75% black, and in 2 generations, there you are with your replacement heifers being 75% black. When you cross a black bull with a red cow, guess what color they normally come out as? Black. So we can make that transition. We could not get a premium price on these red cattle because of that, because there's nobody buying red cattle that will give you a premium like they will the black cattle, because they're more desirable that way. And so that was one of the major holdups with the broker. What she was trying to do is find an outlet that would take that premium price or give us a premium price because of what we're doing to their cattle, but it's the color that holds them back. So there's something to think about. And I'm going to
want to fix racism in America, folks.
there you go. But I'm going to be talking to our Red Angus Association and say, hey, where can we get this? And they're going to tell me, well, if you buy these ear tags or RFID ear tags and stick them in there, or the type of tags that are show registered red, or not registered, but Red Angus, you're going to get more from it. You're not going to get more from it in a stockyard, and you're not going to get more for them through a broker who is not doing something with a premium calf. So there's a little bit of direction that we're going to head, going to look at, going to explore, and maybe we cross some decently docile black bulls with our red cows, and we can maintain some docility in our cattle, which is easier on them, less stress when you're handling them for them. They're not nutty. We've had some stuff that have been fence jumpers, you're just like, what the heck what happened to that one? Well, guess where it goes? It goes and gets its head cut off. We're not going to keep that. So, and it happens occasionally with some heifers, and I think generally those heifers are, they're not breeding up anyway. So, we would find that out later. So that's kind of my thoughts where we're at. Every year it's the same thing. It's you worry and gut wrench. And I think you and I talked just right after that sale. I think maybe I sent you the video is what the deal is. I think you said, how you feeling? It's like,
need a longer rope.
Yeah.
that was your text.
I was searching for new rope. Yeah.
New rope. Yeah.
Yeah. New rope. I was like, Christ, and like your mom, she wrote back and says, we just cannot catch a break. What the hell? And it seems like that, and we're not the only ones. There's others too. There's some that are doing good. I think there's a hell of a lot of politics involved with some of those too. I don't sit and drink whiskey with buyers, and they don't know who I am, and they don't care. And I think they only would if you were buying them the whiskey. So, and I'm not going to waste my time. I'm too busy to do that. I don't do that kind of stuff. But, and I understand that politics is important sometimes. It's all about who you know, but maybe to my detriment.
Yeah.
So,
no,
anyhow,
that's all right. That's good. We're at a normal length episode actually, but
you're welcome. I just saved you, didn't I?
Really though, that's the important part. Is I wanted to share another year, another fall sale. So we're past the 1 year mark on the channel. So if people see this, they can check up above and see our last year one and see kind of the difference in the mentalities. And maybe if we're still around next year, they can see the third one and kind of like where things go and how it works, because we've talked about this. Agriculture is not it's not a quick process. It's a slow process. Even for something that you're thinking of, I want to butcher a steer. Okay, you got to start planning that a year to 18 to 24 months out. It doesn't just happen. You don't grow those things overnight. Right. So it takes a while, but that's the process. That's what happened this year. That's kind of where we're headed with what happened. Like this this domino fell over and it creates this domino to fall, and this is where our thoughts start to go. So with that, I'll give Dad the parting comments.
Well, we could be worse. We could have to sell everything.
Yeah.
And that's part of the other thing too. You don't want to do that. We're trying to maintain. We could sell off a bunch of them, and just to be able to pay for the hay and hopefully hedge our bets for next year. But we're going to try this. We just got to keep them alive. Keep them so they're feet are down and their noses are forward, and then you have something that you may take a beating on them, and we probably would if it's that dire, because it's that way for everybody. We'll be in this one more year like that, but we'll just cut a bunch more numbers. Money in, money out. And for our viewers, we thank you for tuning in. Ask questions. We love that. And the biggest thing is we can do for you is thank you till you're better paid.